against Monkeys.
And a lot of people look at the Kennen ban, and of course Europe, we've had a couple in AD carry, but it was actually Vizicachi with an interview that came out overnight talking about the priority on top lane for Kennen here in Europe. We're expecting it to remain consistent. Zac goes, Xayah go on the red side ban list as well. So nothing overly surprising, apart from perhaps that Syndra, which is a safe blind pick mid laner that CosQ was looking dominant on himself. So now we get to see where does he go in his champion pool.
Yeah, well, he definitely has one that is particular, very interesting. The guy has been known to bring out the likes of the Katarina, the Akali, not afraid to do it even in the promotion tournament. I wouldn't put it past him to do it here on this stage.
And one big pick he's always had in the years of casting him. I've had the pleasure of seeing his Cassiopeia time and time again. Always a pick he's comfortable to bring out, so we'll look towards that later on in the draft. So Elise is a big priority pick that is still available here. That we have to really focus in, because especially with Lee Sin and Zac banned, we're looking towards the Elise, the Graves. A couple of teams have brought out the Kha'Zix, but it didn't really fit the build that I feel like junglers are playing on right now. It can work still.
But with the Elise left open as the Graves was banned, it's going to be the easy no-brainer pickup for Jankos right now. So we'll see what the Monkeys are going to bring out. Is Jisoo's having a little bit of fun himself.
Jisoo is a player that has quite a deep champion pool, but I'm still yet to see a lot more from him. I think he has a lot of extra to show us, and there's the Kha'Zix we were talking about. The only reason that I'm not a big fan of it is without the ability to bring crowd control, I want to see something come from top lane or from the mid lane. Now with Syndra out, that's one champion that typically has that crowd control not available to start fights, and that might be somewhere we'll see Mysterious Monkeys struggle if it's only the Thresh, but we still have three picks left to go.
Yes, we do, and I do like the takeaway from Che to pick up that Thresh nice and early, clearly respecting it, but that means the Zyra was left open, followed up with the Lucian. This is a high damage lane.
Well, not only just the lane, remember, this is a flex Lucian, and now CosQ gets his hands on the assassin of LeBlanc. H2K have some time to now pivot if they want to, as Caitlyn is still available for that bottom lane. The Thresh no longer there for H2K, as it's Dreams that has picked that up, and now as we go towards the mid lane, this is Mysterious Monkeys now anticipating that the Lucian not really one they want to run into the LeBlanc. They want to start banning away some of these matchups that can do very well into that LeBlanc went through scaling later into the game.
Well, as you talked about, player to watch, CosQ, he's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on in H2K as well, especially if they're not going to be able to get any good counter picks for it. The Fiora is now banned on H2K's side up against Jisoo.
And I feel like alongside this, you have to start looking at the Galio if you're H2K. Now, Fiora does very well into the Galio, which means H2K are either anticipating Mysterious Monkeys not picking it away, or they have something else they feel comfortable playing into it. The Gragas has been one of the big picks that we've seen. Shen gone means Mysterious Monkeys now pivot away once they've seen the Fiora. Wouldn't be surprised to see Galio first pick here in Phase 2.
Could come out. 15 seconds still for H2K to lock in their final ban of this first game here. Will they once again target the top lane? Do they remove the Galio? No, it is the Jace.
Still top lane though. Another pick that we're expecting to see come out now and again, and we haven't seen Jace versus Galio specifically here in Europe, but you have to imagine when Galio is particularly good later on in the game against magic damage threats, it still does have a lot of armor come through. Jace has to be a lane that he would have to be careful on, and now H2K likely will divert to the Gragas into the Galio if this gets picked up. That's what teams are running when you look at a neutral lane into then impact in team fights.
Yep, as expected, the Galio's locked in for Jisoo, rounding that comp out, so all they need now is an AD carry for Yuki, but there's still plenty on the board with the Caitlyn up and available unless they flex the Lucian. Looks like that's what Mysterious Monkeys will be able to get their hands on.
Now, Nuclear could very well go the Caitlyn, or the Varus is another option, but if they now look towards a neutral mid lane for Febiven, something like an Orianna that you could play into a LeBlanc and just survive through the early laning phase, they know that without a Caitlyn pick, they can't really pressure out the H2K bot lane, but Lucian Zyra isn't exactly top of the meta for bot lane right now, so there's the flex. It's into mid lane as they pick up the Varus for that pushing bot lane.
So they'll have a lot of power down there, but how will Febiven be able to cope with CosQ's LeBlanc in that mid lane? That's the question we'll have to find out as we take a look into the game. Still, last few seconds tick down. Do we expect the Caitlyn here, Stress?
Ashe is the other choice.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to pick Caitlyn, and if you feel like playing something completely different...
okay. I mean, there's plenty of AD carries, aren't there?
This is a pick that pairs very well with the Thresh. Twitch Thresh has a lot of all-in pressure in the lane. One hook lands, you get the flash, you get a lot of damage down, and the next time, suddenly you get a kill. Big amounts of damage comes from this Twitch, and we've seen it in action. I believe it wasn't Fnatic that played the Twitch, but we did see it in day one of play here in the EU LCS, and be very dominant with that Twitch Thresh lane.
I mean, and this is clearly a lineup that is not lacking for damage. You look at the threats on that side. You have the Kha'Zix, you have KazQ on a LeBlanc, you have a Twitch, and then there's the Galio, who can build tank and still dish it out.
Yeah, Galio, wave clear, tankiness, engage, you know, damage reduction.
He's a package deal.
Yeah, a little strong.
Yeah, just
Galio
you know,
right now.
Might possibly be a little broken. Just a little bit.
H2K looking perhaps to work around Jankos on this Elise, looking for perhaps a play on mid lane if they can knock down KazQ, but KazQ, he's the player we're keeping our eyes on for Mysterious Monkeys. He's the one that you have to imagine will have a big amount of impact in this first series if Mysterious Monkeys are hoping to win.
Well, newcomers to the LCS, always a big challenge to face off against the likes of H2K. So we'll see how they're able to shake things out here as Game 1 gets underway in this best of 3. H2K taking on the Mysterious Monkeys. Now remember, don't forget to hop on Twitter and tell us who you think is going to take away the victory. At LOL Esports is the place with the hashtag H2KWin or a brand spanking new hashtag MMWin.
Get on Twitter, get your input in, and let's take a look at these two lineups as we head into game. I say that. We have a pause.
Might have a slight delay. So we still get to look at the lineups either way.
Before we head into game.
I think so. I think that's a good way to look at it.
So one thing to note, Llama Bear was not with Mysterious Monkeys during their playoff run, through the promotion run. That was Pridestalker, who is now on Roccat. And Llama Bear has a handful of games. I believe it was during the summer Challenger playoffs that he actually played with the Misfits Academy lineup or Misfits lineup that eventually joined the LCS. But Llama Bear has been with the Misfits organization and now Mysterious Monkeys for quite some time. He was the jungler of choice for last split before, unfortunately, not being eligible to play for the team throughout the Challenger Series split. So now we get to see potentially what the quote-unquote full strength roster would have been at the beginning of spring.
That's very true. And when you think about it, you look at a player like Pridestalker that was the highlight or one of the big highlights of that team. And Llama Bear is, you know, I don't want to hesitate to compare to them too much. He was cut from a similar cloth. He was a big Nidalee player.
Yeah.
You know, he likes to go and get aggressive in your face. And you do have to be careful with that strategy when you're up against Jankos. We saw what could happen. You're going to first blood the king. Well, he's going to come right back in your face.
And it's not necessarily about how the individual plays go when you look at a jungler coming in from a lot less experience and only solo queue experience. It's about how the team plays and how a jungler can actually coordinate the team around him. Jankos has been playing on this stage for years. He is very well aware of when he needs his team to be alongside him, how to move on the map, whereas a jungler that comes in with limited practice in comparison may not necessarily be quick to call for when he needs help. So we have to look now at how Mysterious Monkeys actually can play around this and whether being on stage actually affects them. You heard Ifya talking earlier about how they were talking backstage before the games, and they are quite nervous.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to be facing off against titans of the EU LCS like H2K. Seasoned veterans pretty much all around, with the newest members being Nuclear and Chase, still have a split of experience under the belt, plus all of their LCK experience. But for the Mysterious Monkeys, I mean, this is a true rookie squad. These guys have not been on the EU LCS stage before, and I can't remember the last time that we had 5 newcomers, even some of them that have had a lot of challenger experience, the likes of KazQ, Yuki coming in as well. I mean, the man's 26 years old, but he's a rookie.
It's very strange to see Yuki be called a rookie. Casting challenger since like before 2014.
Yeah, it's just making your head spin, isn't it? Wait a minute.
The old Gamers 2 lineup. I'm using that to refer to the team that was actually called.
Hey, it was pre-rebranding. It's all right.
But Yuki's been around for a long time, but never really made it to the LCS. I think that's the key thing here. Is it is a different ball game playing on the controlled environment of the LCS stage. And just to update you, we are just getting back into game soon, I believe. It's
quick settings reset on Odoamne's side, so it should be resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah, we'll be back into game soon, but that's where the difference is now between these two lineups. Is Yuki's been playing a long time, KazQ's been playing a long time. You gotta wonder now, how does that wait to get here actually influence the mentality when you finally get to that stage and you can play? That's where those nerves might set in. This is your big opportunity.
Well, we saw some of those nerves even during the promotion tournament, and you wouldn't think that considering the way they pretty much plowed through most of their opponents. And even from Cosq, I had the pleasure of interviewing him after one of their big games, and it was just, you know, I could tell he was a little bit nervous, but he was just like, we kept it cool, we got together, we were able to make the big plays. And, you know, you got to give respect to anyone who's going to pull out the Akali when you're trying to qualify for the LCS. But let's see how he does on this LeBlanc. We'll see how the Monkeys do it. And after the wait has concluded, we are finally on to Summoner's Rift for the start of this best of 3.
Also, I remember after Cosq qualified, I was sitting there conducting an interview with him, and he just didn't want to do anything other than run around and celebrate. He was one of the most happy people I think we've had when qualifying. So now we get to see Cosq. Febiven is a big match. Shay against Dreams is another very interesting one down in that bottom lane, and especially with Dreams playing a champion like Thresh that can dictate so much in the laning phase. If Nuclear and Shay aren't careful, they may give over a kill to Yuki and Dreams with that Twitch-Thresh combination.
And it's the kind of thing that is right up those two's alley as well. You look at what they did in the promotion tournament. Yuki saw the call at the beginning of the day that Pentakill he was able to pull off, and it was a bit of an odd situation, but you know, he's a guy with a lot of experience, maybe not on this stage, but several years of playing, and you know, give him a hyper carry and the right situation, he might just be able to pop off, and that's something H2K are going to be looking to shut down.
But now you've got to remember that Thresh, for a lot of this, needs to at least control the lane, in the sense that you have to be imposing at times, try and, you know, not necessarily fake hooks, but be in a position where if a hook were to come out, Nuclear and Shay have to concede a lot of space. So it's very tricky now, and if Dreams isn't a very confident player, a Thresh that does nothing offers nothing. It's not like a support like a Janna or a Soraka where you're just sitting back and healing. You have to be a little bit more proactive. So now, if there are nerves, that's where we've got to track through in this game. I think Mysterious Monkeys should be fine. I think we've seen a lot out of them. I'm looking forward to these trades in bottom lane.
But we'll also have to check in with how the mid goes down, because Feb have been rocking the Lucian mid, of course, up against Cosq's LeBlanc, who will be looking to set up some picks as soon as possible. Of course, hard to burst with the Doran shield. I mean, with the changes to it as well, Doran's kind of brushed up his arsenal a little bit, so the stock and the swords have fallen.
Yeah, that's indeed true. Looking at that mid lane, we talked about how Cosq, he's on the LeBlanc, not one of his most played champions. He has a bit of an unorthodox pool, but struggling early on here against Febiven's Lucian. Of course, this is one of the strengths of Lucian. Early on, utilizing that double tap passive, you're able to get a lot of damage down, and Febiven beat Cosq to level 2, and that's where a lot of his domination comes from. He managed to get a quick combination of passive procs off in a row. Cosq already under the pressure. It's not too damning. He has the teleport available. There's a lot of minions in the wave stacked in front of him, and this lane is one we'll keep our eyes on as we go forward.
Absolutely, but for the time being, the experience is definitely proving a little much for Cosq to start things off, and might be requesting the help of Llama Bear soon.
Jankos is doing what Trashy did to him the other day. Trashy posted about this, how he kind of half-cheesed Jankos as you get level 3 really quickly, run into the enemy jungle after you get the Rift Scuttler and try and invade. Well, he gets the blue buff away. Llama Bear already losing 1 buff, but look at it, already the experience, at least from what he should be doing, is showing through. Llama Bear now looking towards the other side of the map, maybe trying to get himself the enemy blue buff in response.
Should be able to pick it up, but instead he's actually going back towards the top. It looks like he might have been spooked for a minute. No way to really ganko to Wamne to start things off, and Jankos is going to force Cosq out of lane, low on the health bar.
Yeah, Llama Bear can't really afford to commit, because look how far mid lane is shoved up. Cosq doesn't know that's warded.
Oh,
obviously will reveal himself.
All right, it's going to be just about it. The jungler's sniffing around to try and make a play, but nothing happening just yet.
But I love what H2K are doing in that sense, because all of that was to deny Cosq the farm under tower. Look, Cosq's still level 3. There is now a wave pushing up to him, but Febiven has a heavy farm advantage, a heavy experience advantage alongside it as well. So H2K expending a lot just to make sure that they can put this assassin back on the back foot. It actually is going to buy Febiven a little better timed recall, in the sense that he doesn't have a TP, he's able to get back to lane, whereas Cosq may expend his when he eventually recalls out.
Yeah, I mean, when you're down half the CS of your opponent, this is going to be a little rough right now for Cosq. And we talked about a Thresh who does nothing, offers nothing. Could say similar things about LeBlanc. You want to get off to a start, so you start being a threat on those side lanes. But you can't do that if you can't really get anything done in your own lane.
Yeah. That's very true. As we look towards the bottom lane, one of the nuances of Doran's Shield, I know we've talked about it a lot, but against Twitch is actually one of the times where it's the most effective, because Doran's Shield's super efficient whenever the active of the 20 health over 10 seconds after being hit by a champion is actually available and running. And Twitch actually extends it. Any damage over time ability will cause the efficiency on that to repeat itself. So instead of the 10 seconds, it lasts for 16 seconds on Twitch Poison. You get a little bit of extra healing from it.
That's a good shield, man. Able to stop the poison up. So Yuki is going to have a harder time, but that lane is already a little bit rough for him anyways. The range advantage is always going to be in the favor of the Varus for the time being, and we really do want to check in on how the supports really position themselves in this bottom lane. So far, it has been Nuclear and Shea who are pushing all the way up. So 2 lanes out of 3 pushing in the favor of H2K.
We haven't yet seen on camera any attempts at the hook out of Dreams. They weren't really able to dictate the level 2, so that wasn't necessarily an option for them. Unlike what we saw out of Fnatic's bottom lane, Jez is going very aggressive in the lane. But we, again, are waiting to see where this Mysterious Monkeys lineup actually looks to put their focus, because through qualifying, everything was about snowballing mid lane. Mid lane, mid lane, mid lane. Send Pridestalker mid, get CosQ ahead. Llama Bear hasn't had too much of an opportunity to get there, because Jankos has had his impact there as well.
I've been trying to get some more damage out on the CosQ. Only half the culling is able to find him as he gets stopped up on the chains.
And the experience of Featherman showing that he knows he can trade his health. He has Barrier, he hit level 6 first. He's able to push CosQ away from the wave, deal damage, trade some of Featherman's health in exchange for harassing down CosQ. And he maintains his CS lead, gets another recall out, and is able to make it back to lane. This time, CosQ doesn't have TP, remember. And with Ignite, there's a lot less kill threat on Lucian than you would normally expect.
Oh yeah, it's very difficult to kind of work through that health bar, especially with the barrier up and available. And even though Jisoo is managing to push out his lane up in the top side, that's really not going to make a huge difference right now. It's just Doran's rings match for Doran's rings right now. So H2K are perfectly happy to let this one be nice and slow to begin with.
Well, at the same time, it's Galio. He pushes just about every lane, almost everyone. As the tornado spawns in front of him and can clear a wave later into the game. It's a little bit silly, but at the same time, Jisoo will become unkillable. So if you leave him for too long, it might not necessarily be the easiest thing to deal with. And keep in mind that while H2K do have a good amount of mixed damage with a Zyra, with an Elise, their primary damage threats are AD. So if Galio does end up building a whole bunch of armor, maybe gets the Gargoyle Stoneplate to add even more armor on top of that, and a lot of health, it may still be difficult to kill him, despite him predominantly being an anti-magic tank.
Yeah, that could be pretty difficult for them. They're going to have to itemize appropriately. And the thing about Jankos is you can do early damage on Elise. You can get in people's faces early on before you get to that later game stage anyways. We just haven't seen him, outside of that mid attempt really early on, actually do a whole lot outside of his own jungle or the blue buff down by. So he hasn't been all over the place. It's more about mind gaming Llama Bear.
If you think about it, he has hamstrung CosQ quite significantly in the middle lane. And now that opens up the map. Even though you're not getting kills, if you push the mid laner back and you're able to get wards down, you can look for a dragon. Maybe we'll see him look to solo Rift Herald if they have the time and the tempo in order to get it. CosQ just summoned his Mimic. I think he was trying to check Dragon, but he's heading towards mid lane. Maybe try and catch out.
I don't think he's going to fool anyone there when both LeBlancs are in the same lane. Yeah. As it stands, H2K, they're able to secure themselves up a pretty easy dragon.
That's another combo we got to watch out for, though, remember. The Galio with the Mimic, they're able to get Galio to come in later in on the matchup.
All right, they can fake people out for sure.
Tricky little play out by Mysterious Monkeys, but this is a slow start to the game for both teams. H2K now having the Ocean Dragon lead thanks to Jankos.
And Jankos had a really big early impact in their previous series against Splice, despite it being a slow early game one as well. Oh, where he was first blooded, but you know, I guess that's going to happen sometimes.
Jankos wasn't too happy with me before the show. We have a little giveaway sometimes at the studio for those.
Yeah, I saw that dirty look he gave you when he told him he got.
And the question for today was who was the player that got first blood, and it was Trashy, of course, in that series. And Jankos sitting on stage was not happy to be reminded of that. Odo Amne let him know, though. Odo Amne pretty much laughed at him at that point while they were setting up. But H2K certainly in high spirits after a win against Splice. 2-0, very convincing. advancing, and with a move towards the top lane, Jankos is looking to set up his team and Odoamne perhaps to take the lead of this game as well.
Jesus is going to have to watch himself. Beryl is going to pinball him back towards the wrong tower, but Odo has to be careful as he's low on the health bars. Jankos coming in. This is about as easy as it can get. He's stunned up on the cocoon. Justice punches his way in
got the
for
first
the first blood onto Odoamne. Jisoo goes down, but hashtag worth.
You said easy as could be. I don't think Odoamne was expecting the damage to come through there. And
just Galio things, man.
Hang on, bottom lane. We may very well have a sneak attempt here. Flash flame.
Okay, the box, it's not going to clip him here, but they're looking for nuclear, turning their attention over to Che as Llama Bear takes a bite out of his health bar. One more shot to taste his fear, and all of a sudden the Monkeys got 2 kills.
Well, we talked about how deadly this bottom lane can be if they can get the engage. This time Dreams was patiently waiting for his opportunity. Flash Flay connects, they get the damage down. H2K try making a play topside and actually drop 2 kills for 1, with Mysterious Monkeys coming out ahead.
Yeah, it was a long setup. I mean, probably should have said that rather than easier before everything all happened, but it looks like very much there wasn't going to be anything else going down. But Jisoo, man, he really took a swing to it to help get Mysterious Monkeys on the board early on. So first blood to them, a kill down bot. It's only a 200 gold advantage, but that's momentum.
Yeah, that is a good amount of momentum. We were talking so much about how mid lane would be the influential one. Well, it was actually top lane. So Jisoo is able to utilize some of that shielding that Galio has early on, and then Odoamne. Happy hour is already gone now for Odoamne in this matchup, or at least in this little exchange. Taunt comes through, Justice punch into the Q, and then Jisoo's able to get enough health back from Grasp of the Undying, plus the ability to just sit there. He's able to get the kill, and then we go to bottom lane. In comes Llama Bear, along with the rest of the Mysterious Monkeys bottom lane. The Zyra knockup actually gets both Dreams and Yuki, I think, but it wasn't enough to stop Llama Bear, who was right next to him.
Yeah, and that could have been worse for the H2K bottom lane as well. They just narrowly avoided being locked up in the Thresh box, and Che actually even had to flash to get out of it, but he still ended up going down. And speaking of burning flashes, another thing great for Mysterious Monkeys, they burned Jankos' flash just to make sure Jisoo was going to get killed. And all of a sudden, it looks like we're in for some more. Up goes the Spider, and KazQ says not today.
You know how we were talking about KazQ and jungler around mid being a big priority? Well, the Mysterious Monkeys say, okay, we didn't do it from the beginning, but here we go. Let's get the ball rolling in the way they like to play. And that pretty much offsets all the hard work from Featherman from the beginning of this game. That CS lead now pretty much is non-existent in the sense that the gold is made up for by the kill, so
feels bad, man.
Monkeys. We talked about how H2K should theoretically be a tough test for them from how good they looked against Splice. Well, for the early game at least, Mysterious Monkeys are in control.
Chains down onto Febivan as he was looking for KazQ, just able to walk out freely. Febivan's going to have to clear the minions away. Really nice start, yeah, as Mysterious Monkeys have been able to turn it around. It seemed like at the beginning of the game, we knew there was going to be some stage nerves. We knew they were always going to have a little bit of trouble dealing with, you know, H2K's early game, but the fact that they built themselves up a lead here, it's an encouraging sign for the newcomers.
Yeah, encouraging sign. It just clicked why Jisoo was hovering over Wukong to begin the Champ Select. I completely forgot. I was thinking about it. I was trying to get monkey puns in my head, and I'm like, oh, Wukong. That's why he hovered Wukong. Somebody is going to tell me how slow I am on that.
I hope that becomes a thing every week.
Always.
I mean, every team's got their own hovers, right? Yeah, and then when you don't expect it, of course.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about crowd control up top. I mean, that would have provided him, but not to level 6 anyways. All the same, though. Back into this one, Mysterious Monkeys rocking just shy of 1,000 gold lead. It is up against H2K that have a regen Drake, right? But now that they have some tempo, and there's a Mountain Drake coming up in a minute, things could start turning around. Jankos, though, is moving into this jungle. There's no camps available. There's going to be one ward on the other side, so he won't get spotted. He might go for a dive here, but Che's coming up through the jungle as well, so it looks like they're just trying to get some vision.
have actually pinged out the exact location that Che and Jankos were, so they were clearly aware of that being a possibility, and now they'll run over a ward towards the middle lane, so there shouldn't be really any opportunity now for H2K to pick up a kill. So Mysterious Monkeys have started controlling a little bit of what H2K were looking to do after those first few kills, and we're starting to get closer and closer to these first few item breakpoints. Blade of the Ruined King in the middle lane already completed. Top lane, the tanks haven't got any full items yet, but we're getting close to it already.
Yeah, Jisoo's not really having a whole lot of trouble in the 1v1 situation, but Oda still able to hang tough. Nice dodge out as the Justice Punch goes through for Jisoo, looking for more onto Oda. Just turns it back around with the barrel. Yanko's coming up again, but the last time he came up here, it wasn't exactly the result he wanted.
This time they got Febiven with them. Maybe this can be enough.
Boy.
But look, Jisoo should have a clear way back to his tower. If he can flash out early,
the barrel.
Justice Punch, he's got flash.
See if he can do it. Shield of Durand isn't going to get him out of harm's way, but the flash will. Sends a Winds of War. He's going really low under tower here, but Febiven is able to finally finish him off, not without taking a few tower shots as well. And they are running low on minions up top, but they'll start to push this. Odo's going to have to flash. That is not something we usually see.
Didn't realize he was tanking tower for a while there. Clearly just... all
right.
Okay.
This has been an unusual start.
The most mysterious thing about this game isn't the monkeys, it's the flash usage of H2K in the top lane. But now we got mid lane TP coming through. H2K, they get the first tower of the game, so that should stabilize them for a second, but a little bit of madness in the last 30 seconds of this game.
I usually talk about H2K having pretty solid methodical starts, but they've certainly been startled just a little bit. And with so much commitment up towards the top, not to mention a couple of flashes blown, Llama Bear's got free reign on the Mountain Drake.
And this is one thing that H2K aren't necessarily prepared for, in the sense that they can't really deter this Mountain Drake unless Odoamne can somehow get a great steal. H2K weren't focused on the Rift Herald there because it would have caused their backs to be too late. There was no real objective after the tower for H2K to pick up, so I think you could even look at that as being potentially more of an even trade than you would anticipate, but nevertheless, it was tower first blood going over to H2K. That little bit of influx of gold gave them the extra bit towards the last items. Llama Bear is on a ward, so this time the play won't work. There's a very smart ward by Che, I believe it is. It's just out of range of the tower, but in range of where a Kha'Zix would like to sneak in and get that lantern from Thresh, just like it happened earlier.
Yep. You may not be able to see it all the time. That time they're able to. However, you don't always have to. You get the game sense. You're able to be like, that's a Kha'Zix spot. Okay.
Well, here comes Galio into mid lane, though.
KazQ hanging tough as he dodges out half the rest of Febiven, who gets taunted up, but KazQ very low, and Llama Bear comes in for cleanup duty, his second kill of the game.
Yeah, Llama Bear able to get right in time to pick up the kill. KazQ was safe. He had flash still available as well. H2K are looking a little bit on the back foot over the last few minutes. Mysterious Monkey's making a couple of plays around the map, but it is that tower first blood that is keeping H2K in the lead. I want to see where they go next on this, because H2K need to continue this advantage when it comes to their objectives they're taking. Febiven was looking to try and preempt where KazQ was going, I think maybe just the wrong way on the culling there out of Febiven, but nevertheless difficult to hit the culling onto a LeBlanc either way. But Febiven, you can see he knows that that wasn't exactly the cleanest from him. Didn't flash, used the barrier, but couldn't survive.
I wanted to see the Jisoo reaction because Llama Bear totally jacked that kill. All right, checking back in with it. A lot of trades back and forth, but KazQ goes in, KazQ goes out. The Lantern's there. Dreams is keeping tabs on what's going on in this mid lane, of course, but we'll check in with some of our items. You talked about the first couple of them being completed with the first Tower Blood going the way of H2K, but it's not the only place we've had items completed as well, as KazQ is able to get his X-Deck Gunblade all out and available. Yanko's starting himself on the Rift Herald.
Got a real interesting item on the Galio. We've seen a couple of different Galio builds here in Europe. That's a righteous glory.
That's not him I'm well acquainted with, Stress. He wants to go real fast.
Well, if you look at the major regions, talking about LCK, EU, and NA for now that are playing, first player to do so, but Rift Herald is the fight here. Galio coming towards. They're stealing away.
They just come in and eat H2K's lunch. Down it goes. That's going to be Rift Herald picked up. The fight is on as KazQ is trying to get out of harm's way, dodging out from the spider. Dreams is going to get the Flash Lantern to keep KazQ alive. Nobody goes down but the Rift Herald. And Mysterious Monkeys commit grand larceny, but they might pay for it here. Stunned up, Jisoo's able to take down Che. Dreams still hanging tough before Yanko sinks the fangs in. Yuki picking up one more kill off the back. It is 1 for 2, Mysterious Monkeys.
Well, that's one way of not losing tempo. Oh, KazQ, Yankos
he still dodged.
Yankos has got to protect the dodge back on the Q. KazQ.
Oh, he got that.
Gets the execute. Yankos had to hit him in time. And there's the Rift Herald in mid lane. Already that first tower goes down. Llama Bear just instantly sending Rift Herald into the mid lane. Not a lot of damage done on the second one, but already they steal the Rift Herald. The tower goes down mid lane. Mysterious Monkeys really outplaying H2K on that one.
Yeah, geez, H2K just did not know what hit him, and that was impressive moves from the Monkeys right there. And even the execute at the end from CosQ, it means that Mysterious Monkeys walk away with that objective advantage, with the tower picked up, and 2 kills for 1. Here it is again.
I mean, there's a good way of not losing tempo on Rift Herald, just come in and steal it. At that point, not a lot you can do if you're H2K without fully committing to it. But Featherman struggling a little bit on this Lucian after a good early game to have this impact in the team fights. He chunks Mysterious Monkeys quite low, and CosQ, keep in mind, he lives until the execute in this fight. So MM go back in for the fight. They're able to at least get some equalizing kills from Yuki's Twitch. And then they sent the Rift Herald down mid, and everything seems to be working out in their favor. This is a lot better of a performance than perhaps we were expecting going up against H2K, who looked very strong against Splice.
Oh yeah, Mysterious Monkeys coming in, looks like something to prove even, although CosQ and Llama Bear are trying to cut off Febiven right here. He has the dash, he has the flash, he has the barrier. Will he need all 3 to get out? Meanwhile, CosQ is getting chunked out by Jankos, but Yuki comes in to pick up Febiven, and CosQ lives again. The man is a magician.
Can you believe it? CosQ for a couple of fights back to back, not giving over any gold to the enemies on the kills. So at this point, Odo gets taunted back in. He's trying to use everything he can to try and secure that kill, but Nuclear, remember, has been pushing the mid lane this entire time, so Mysterious Monkeys are on the back foot on that exchange. These two teams are going back and forth on every little trade.
Yeah, but it's Mysterious Monkeys that have come up with those kills. However, towers low all across the board. H2K looking to just play the objective game out. But when you lose out on the Rift Herald, you got to be careful. How's that working for you? And 35 seconds until the Infernal Drake comes up. With the tempo advantage, Mysterious Monkeys could be poised to take a serious lead.
And now is a difficult time for H2K to try and push their lead a little harder, because look at it, Jizu already 2 armor components picked up in his inventory. We've got the Seeker's Arm Guard that CosQ's been building for a while into that Lucian. They may run out of damage if this game gets later. That's a 3-kill, 2-assist Galio that is going to become difficult to kill, despite, as we talked about, him being an anti-magic tank. H2K are looking for this Infernal Drake. They can't let it go, but look where Jizu's coming from. He's got Righteous Glory. He can get to this fight incredibly quickly, even without his ultimate.
Things are flying right now. Mysterious Monkeys want to kick into high gear with Llama Bear and the rest of the team. This is going to be the startup, but will this Dragon be the bait? Jizu coming around the backside. CosQ gets caught on the cocoon. All of a sudden, it's 5v4, and it's going to look like Dreams is knocked right into the rest of the team. In comes the hero's interest. Dreams is walking away from this one. They're turning it around, but Shay picks up a quick double on the back as Jankos is caught in the back of the pit. Febiven's going to send a big calling flying, and finally Jizu will fall, shut down by Febiven. As the dust settles, it is 3 members dead from the Mysterious Monkeys, the rest in full retreat. That means H2K nabbed the Baron, or Dragon, I should say. That
cocoon was a difference maker from Jankos there. We've seen a couple of mechanical misplays from H2K, but that was a beautiful one. It was from a warded area over the wall, so CosQ playing right into the hands of the First Blood King, but Jankos certainly makes him pay for it. That's an Infernal Drake going down. Featherman and Nuclear in this mid lane have a lot of damage, but CosQ TP'd in.
He comes right around the side, but he falls again. He was pushing his luck that time around. So many escapes, but now so many questionable decisions.
And now perhaps you see some of that inexperience coming through. CosQ, very used to snowballing leads very effectively, thinks, okay, I'll TP back in. I can make this play work for me. Unfortunately, 2 damage dealers, the support of H2K still sat towards the middle lane, makes it difficult to convert it into a kill, even despite them being half health.
I mean, it's so hard to burst down Febiven at this point. He's got the barrier up and available to him. He's going to have Flash soon again, of course, and he's been able to kite it out with his Blade of the Rune King. Not to mention his damage is starting to stack up.
Yeah, his damage certainly is. So, as you said, CosQ was warded. Jankos threw the cocoon before CosQ got over the wall, but it landed after he stepped in front of him. So,
nice shielded Durant by Jizu, but yeah, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, you can see that Galio, okay, at this point, still easy to take down with that amount of AD. that magic shield just does nothing against Febiven and Nuclear. But remember, that's no completed AD armor items, but that's now Infernal Drake into tower. H2K, 3 towers to 1 up, have fired back in this game. It looked for a while like Mysterious Monkeys had full control, but H2K have re-arrested their authority on this game.
Yep, now they're stacking closer and closer to that Baron pit with 24 minutes on the clock. It starts to become a big possibility, but not before a few members are dead. Will that really be what they look at? H2K are not known for the riskiest of Baron calls.
I mentioned that I thought Febiven maybe had started to struggle a little bit more throughout this game. Well, the last few minutes have been Febiven saying there is no struggle here for me. He's reasserted his CS lead in the mid lane. He's picked up a couple of kills and been active in pushing the side lanes, coming to mid lane. Now he's got that rapid fire cannon as well, so a little bit of extra range, extra damage. He is in prime position, if Mysterious Monkeys aren't coordinated in these fights, to take out the likes of a Twitch, like a LeBlanc, if they can manage to catch them out in advance. So H2K not hurting for damage quite yet. No, and Febiven, honestly, he's been able to dodge out of some bad situations, and he's done it on basic boots 25 minutes into this game. That's the impressive thing for me. So Febiven is definitely shining right now in this later part of the game, but we're only 25 minutes in. There's plenty of time for Mysterious Monkeys to try and mount themselves a comeback, but they do need to start stopping H2K in their tracks. The team fights are getting a little out of hand. Jisoo will be able to clear out Odo Omne's presence in the bottom lane. It's the top lane that Yuki has to be very careful. He goes up towards the top lane, will have to move towards mid in response. You can see how back and forth this game has been between the two teams already. It's a good sign for Mysterious Monkeys in a sense. Yeah. Maybe not the best sign for H2K fans if you were expecting a quick 2-0 on the day.
Where'd be the fun if you don't get challenged? Now, Cosq, I have never seen anyone go in on 4 members like that, but he gets pinballed once again as Che gets the kill. Jisoo is too late to be a hero. Has to take the lantern out, but they do catch up Odo Omne, flaying him right back into the box, and tower shots flying right now. He's still going to stay alive just barely.
Jisoo is just taking so much damage in these exchanges. As much as Righteous Glory will give you a little bit of health, remember, no resistance is offered from it either. It's mana, it's health regen that comes from it. And of course, there's a couple of things with the passive that activates and you want the movement speed to get you into fights, but it doesn't really make you that much more tanky when you look at what the other items that Gallios typically have been building, whether it's the Randuins at some point later on. Some of them are getting an adaptive helm, some of them are getting the stone plate, which is one of my favorite items on
It's quite thematically
Galio.
Appropriate, isn't it? Yeah, it is a little bit questionable, especially when you don't need the active from Righteous Glory to get into fights. You just fly into them. But, you know, I guess he just wants a little more wind beneath his wings. Let's see where he ends up going next. He's in on Odo Omne, but, I mean, this has been about as wet noodle as it gets for a little while. Only when the junglers have gotten involved and we really see the kills starting to go through. But, yeah, Jisoo's definitely going to need to find something a little bit more if they want to keep this game in their favor. And Cosq might need to temper the aggression a little bit.
Just a little. He's a 1-4-2 LeBlanc, playing as if he's a 14-0-2 LeBlanc at that point, where he's looking for all of his
played with
kills.
a few LeBlanc players like that.
You don't want to play with my LeBlanc. That'll be 0-14-2.
We still go in on 4, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got to keep going for the kills, as Cosq is doing. Of course, with this setup, with the double teleport, should in theory be Mysterious Monkey's way of setting up the side lanes. But look, it's H2K making plays on the TP users.
2-on-1, all that armor, and he just has to flash it out. Justice Punch to get out of the way. 2 on him, and no response from Mysterious Monkeys in mid.
And what this does is it makes it so that at maximum it could be a 2 versus 2. Cosq did just use his TP in defensive play. Away from... He was just making sure Odo Omne and Febiven didn't actually push. Now the team engage in mid.
Nuclear's got a root up on to Yuki, who already burned his flash dreams, and he are going to get knocked up as Llama Bear's there for the defense.
But Febiven and
Yuki's
Odo.
very low. Cosq gets the chains on. Febiven has to back it out. There's no tier 1 tower, although Odo Omne barrels his way right into the rest of the team, but he is still tanking it out right now as the rest of H2K are there with the damage. Clearly no trouble for them as Nuclear was just busy farming.
The Monkeys were able to bring Jisoo over to the fight in time, and that bought Cosq enough time to arrive as well, but H2K forced them away from the Dragon. Remember, that's a lot of flashes burned from Mysterious Monkeys. All of the combat summoners from bot lane are down too. Cosq walks right into Febiven and just gets chunked.
Yeah, you've got 16% extra AD and AP, and the longer this game goes, that's going to start stacking. We talked about heavy AD damage from H2K maybe being a weak point. It doesn't seem to be the case right now.
A little regen comes through from that Ocean Drake as well. They can head towards the top side, look to at least clear out vision. They're just going to start this. This is H2K saying you can't challenge us with all of your summoners being down. Look how fast they burn through it. Double Blade of the Ruined King plus the Elise. Jisoo, he can get vision, but it's not going to be too much more than that. The Baron has already gone. H2K have really started to solidify all of their defenses against Mysterious Monkeys. And they're starting to run out of some of the bite that we had seen in the early game from the brand new team into the LCS.
Yep, we always knew it was going to be a tough climb for the newcomers. However, H2K, they've started to keep this in their favor, looking to lock this game up. We're close on 30 minutes right now, and there is still, of course, going to be hope for that 2-0, but not quite as crushing as we saw up against Splice. However, Mysterious Monkeys are still going to have to stop this bleeding.
And now this Mysterious Monkeys lineup is a pretty devastating composition if they can actually get ahead significantly and look to control two of the lanes, and then you move the Twitch with two others out to a side lane, push through. But Cosq hasn't been in control of mid lane at almost any point in this game, and that is a real big issue if you want to run this comp, because if you lose control of mid lane, you lose control of jungle entrances, and that means H2K can find Llama Bear, can find Cosq as they're moving lane to lane, and actually punish them for trying to set up all of this side lane play. Top lane tower is still up. Bot lane tower is still up for H2K. This is not a composition that could work in this environment.
With the Baron buff on, 5 members strong, H2K know they can just bully, shove up the mid. And what you talked about punishing on these side lanes, Llama Bear, he had an early impact in the lanes after maybe a minute or two of not seeing too much of it. But we haven't seen too much out of him since then, and a lot of it's been because he just hasn't been able to get anywhere safely. So H2K have kind of closed a lot of these gaps, and now they're looking to do on top just what they did in the mid.
And this is one of my issues with Kha'Zix, that is he doesn't offer much in these situations, which a lot of champions have weaknesses at certain points in the game. This is one that I feel for junglers is a pretty big weakness, when you can't force plays, when you're relying now on other champions to force plays. Champions like Graves are still good at the same time as a Kha'Zix. I just feel like Kha'Zix is underwhelming to watch for me, outside of the slow you get off the W.
Well, you know, I mean, the way they were playing with Pride Stalker, you look at him locking in a Kha'Zix, that would have been something huge, but, you know, Llama Bear is not able to make the same kind of thing happen, but it's also up against a different caliber of team, right?
Well, that's because, remember, Pride Stalker destroyed Lulax in the series that he played Rengar and Kha'Zix. It just wasn't even close. He was like 8-0 in a Kha'Zix game that was ridiculous. This isn't the same. If you're 2-0, that's great, but you can't snowball too effectively. And now without Dreams landing hooks, without Cosq catching people out, Jisoo can't really engage on his own either. It's difficult to get things rolling.
Yeah. And H2K's got a pretty beefy front line now that Otawamne's really started stacking up. And, you know, he's looking at Jisoo saying, see this item in my third slot? That's the one you're supposed to build. So he's trying to give him a little bit of advice as the Gargoyle Stone Plate's complete. He may not do a whole lot of damage once he's popped up, but he doesn't need to. He's Gragas.
And Jisoo opting towards the Abyssal Scepter, would have been expecting this item a little earlier on and then going more towards armor, but Jisoo still obviously wanting to get a lot of that survivability that he can get, but Bevin is one of the ones that's dealing a significant amount of damage to him.
After a gold lead that really shifted quite a lot, was quite volatile in the earlier stages of the game, it's been creeping slowly up in H2K's favor, and now it's just kind of going off the charts here. It's 7,000 in the lead. A lot of that comes from the tower differential because Mysterious Monkeys were only able to knock down that one off a stolen Rift Herald.
Yeah, they didn't get too much more. That was a beautiful steal.
It was. I mean, their early game was very impressive to see them flustering H2K, but now we get back into the control game, the kind of thing we expect to see.
And I've enjoyed watching Yuki. His performance has been, you know, in line with what we were seeing in the promotion tournament, and that for him. He is 3-0-2, didn't get caught out at all yet in this game, which means I did just curse him, and he probably will die once before the game ends.
Isn't that the counter curse, though, when you mention it?
That's what I was trying. I was making sure my impact on this
counter curse, I don't know.
That's
too deep for me.
Yeah, that is well down the rabbit hole on this one. But still, I think Yuki's a player that I'm looking forward to seeing weeks of improvement out of. Maybe we'll see some more out of them in Game 2 as well. This game is certainly not done yet, though.
No, there's still a lot more league to play, but more on your point about Yuki, I think it's awesome to see him finally be able to get on this stage because he had been so long in the challenger scene. We talk about CosQ and he's a highlight player, but Yuki is the oldest player in the LCS. The guy's older than Soaz, and he's finally made it to this stage. And that kind of age gives you some level of experience. You played so much more League than even some of these hotshot younger kids that you can kind of recognize situations that not everybody can and adapt to things.
To some extent, yeah. I feel, though, there's no experience of LCS experience.
That's true. I mean, the quality is definitely something to worry about, but I think it's nice to see Yuki at least performing on a similar level than what we saw out of him in Challenger.
Yeah, that's fair. As Mysterious Monkey's trying to contest around this second Ocean Drake. One more Drake before Elder would spawn, so Febiven got to be careful on these wards as H2K taking this quite slowly here. Of course, Dragon hasn't spawned yet, so they're in no rush. But Jankos heads down there on his own. It's going to be the easy one-man take here, because Mysterious Monkey's running out of options on this. They're looking for an engage in mid while they suspect there's two people on Dragon.
Yep. Be harder to burst now with the Ocean Dragon going the way of H2K. CosQ hunting right now, but he's locked up, and the collapse comes in. That Zhonya's is not going to save you too long, buddy. Bopped right into Nuclear. And in comes Jisoo. Oh, no. Looks like he just tagged his way into his own doom as he has to take the Blast Cone Express to make his great escape, dodging out the barrel from Otoamne, and he even needs the Lantern to get out.
And you can see H2K on two fronts now, moving through the mid lane, keeping Llama and Yuki here. Otoamne will do his best to at least delay the Mysterious Monkeys from their bottom lane, and you can see already H2K looking to push through. CosQ still 25 seconds before he can get there, and now they've got to be careful from all this tower pushing potential from two AD carries out of H2K. This one's going to go down very quickly.
Played Otoamne in, but that's not the one you want. Big front line, able to hang tough once again. No more minions for H2K, but they got 5 members strong. Looking for Yuki, has to flash out. And the Thresh box is there, stunning, locking up the Lucian. He flashes back right into the redemption to stay alive as even Che picks up a kill. And the culling comes out. Low health bars on the side of Mysterious Monkeys, but CosQ is trying to play the hero. But how many times have we seen this one? He's down and out, 11 to 10 on the kills. It's been a bloody game, but H2K are looking to put a lid on it.
Yeah, H2K, it's only a small minion wave, but with 280 carries, Llama and the rest of Mysterious Monkey's gonna go back.
There we go, one big shutdown. Finally, Yuki's gonna fall. Jankos even sinking the fangs in with low health bars, and Llama Bear, all by his own, is not gonna be able to do it. No more minions, so H2K can't finish the job just yet, but Febiven will tag his way in and get at least one Nexus turret.
Now they can walk in the minion wave. Llama Bear gets to recall, get another attempt at this. He does just have the evolved leap, but I don't know whether, can he get onto Che, get the first reset? Febiven looks to shut him down.
Yep, Febiven doesn't have the barrier, but H2K just don't seem to care right now. There's the leap, but they knock him right in, and they knock him right back. That's gonna be the last of the Nexus turrets. And H2K say no monkey business, not in game 1, as they take a 1-0 lead on the series.
It was a good start out of Mysterious Monkeys, some crisp play early on, punishing H2K for their approach on the top lane as Jisoo outplayed Jankos and Otoamne, but H2K, cooler heads prevailed. Again and again, punishing CosQ for his attempted aggression, and H2K came out with game 1 of the series.
Mysterious Monkeys might look to shake up the strategy in game just a little bit, maybe play something that's a little less binary for CosQ. But we also have to see that aggression really step down when he's in a position like he was. 1-3, 1-4, you know, that's not the count you want to keep going up.
To some extent, I kind of respect it in the way that instead of going, oh, okay, I'm just not going to do anything on the game. He's like,
I guess it's better than doing nothing.
Back into the game, who knows? I think it's a difficult position to be in for Mysterious Monkeys. Your first game, you think, great, everything's going good, we're ahead, we even stole a Rift Herald, everything's great, but unfortunately, they just didn't really have enough health in fights to stay alive, and CosQ wasn't even in half the fights.
Yeah, well, we'll see if the Monkeys can hang tough. H2K have started the series with a win. Let's check out with our analysts for more on game number 1.
Well, I think Stress is hitting the nail on the head there for Mysterious Monkeys. Kind of respect that they kept fighting, and they got off to a great start exactly by picking the right moment to fight as well. And that is usually what you expect from kind of a newer team in the league, that they know when to pull the trigger, or that they like to pull the trigger, but it doesn't mean that they have the oversight over the rest of the map.
Yeah, mechanically, on an individual level, we're seeing that the Mysterious Monkeys definitely know how to play, right? Jisoo, especially in the top lane in a 2 versus 1 scenario, able to get himself a kill, which is the best case scenario in this situation. The way in which he plays it is just fantastic as well, mitigating a lot of the CC and then getting that burst damage, which Odoamne did not respect. He could have flashed the knockup, he chose not to, and instead he just takes the damage.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of these fights where it really felt like Mysterious Monkeys were surprising H2K a little bit. Like H2K were not ready mechanically for a lot of different fights. There was a mid lane Fib event, a few like instances where he's going aggressive, he gets ganked, he dies, he doesn't really get a turnaround, and a lot of kills actually went over to Mysterious Monkeys, which, as you highlighted, Shucks, was kind of the way for them to try and win the game. Because what we did see then, you know, the further we went into the game was the macro part was lacking quite a bit, but they were getting kills. So it was almost like watching a Western team versus like a top Korean team in a way. Like early kills for the Western team, you're like believing, and then you realize they have like 1 tower to 3 towers and they don't get drakes, and it's kind of falling apart from there.
Yeah, I think that's the emphasis. Like what we saw from H2K was even though they were losing a lot of these small skirmishes, these fights, they were always getting a tower in return. And even though Mysterious Monkeys were able to get that mid lane tower, they did not get any other tower outside of that.
No, they did manage to steal away the Rift Herald, and that's one of those scenarios where you're like, oh, you're not actually not in position to contest it, but you managed to steal it. But yeah, that was kind of the last huzzah.
Yeah, I mean, some of those plays from H2K, they were just very weird in the early game. Like, it was a bit like watching the first game against Splice. H2K played as well, where there were just a lot of bad calls being made that actually allowed the other team to then go in and punish those calls. And I think the fact that Mysterious Monkeys just pulled the trigger is to their credit. Like, they could have just sat back and said, we already lost that Rift, we can't contest it. But as we just saw right here, they jump in with Galio ulti and everything, steal it, and even win the following fight. So I think a lot of credit to them for actually opting into the aggressive plays. Sadly, when you play that style where you just rely on getting kills to get gold, it becomes really hard to keep doing it over and over, because once you start making you know, a bad call in a team fight, hint, hint, cost queue, then suddenly you don't actually get anything, because all your income is based around kills, where all of H2K's income was based around farm and towers.
Yeah, we see their Febivin stats, but in the end, cost queue kind of coincided with the Mysterious Monkeys ship kind of sinking. The fact that he felt the need to make a couple of plays and they were ill-timed or ill-placed. We'll take a look at, sadly, a dead montage, but, you know, welcome to the LCS, dude.
Yeah, the thing worth highlighting here is that in Challenger Series, there's a very good chance that this kind of playstyle will work for Cosq, because he does not respect the amount of vision control that H2K have in the majority of these situations and their ability to respond to his incredibly aggressive style. Yeah. But H2K is so used to this and they're so well prepared that every plan that Cosq brings to the table instantly gets shut down. And I think this is just something that he can learn from and develop with. And this is what we were talking about earlier in the day. Having the opportunity to play against one of the better teams in Group B helps you identify some of these things very early on in the split.
Yeah, a lot of things you can go back and look at here is Mysterious Monkey saying, okay, hey, we already have an advantage. You know, how do we use that advantage? Okay, we opted into that dragon fight where we just saw Cosq getting cocooned over the wall. Okay, we lost that dragon fight. Then we tried making play mid. Okay, that was maybe not the right call either, because once again, we lost the guy. So it wasn't to make fun of Cosq. We showed, you know, him dying 3 times. It was actually what turned the game in favor of H2K, because they picked up a Baron, you know, shortly after. 6k Baron power play. Almost no chance for Mysterious Monkeys after.
4.5k gold swing in 10 minutes for H2K, so they definitely... And it was actually kind of reminiscent of their series versus Splice, so their first game where they kind of struggled to find the right form in the beginning. Splice had some good moves, but then H2K, once they get that first like kind of macro objective or they get a couple of towers, they just know what to do.
They do, and that's just credit to H2K. They have a good understanding of how to play the game, but I think it's really worth highlighting that...
In the late game.
In the late game, yeah, in the later stages of the game. Early game is still a little... A couple of more question marks, which they are likely to shore up if we're following the same trend of game 2s that we have been seeing throughout the week so far. But I just really want to highlight for Mysterious Monkeys the fact that they were bringing it to H2K. And for me, the big thing that stands out, that separates them from some of the other teams, when we looked at Vitality and Rockout, we were like, there's nothing really that stands out about them. But when I look at this lineup, like Jisoo is an actual player that I thought was very impressive. Down in the bottom lane, Dreams and Yuki were holding their own and they were playing a very difficult lane in a very impressive way. So I think that, in my eyes at least, Mysterious Monkeys have a little bit more potential from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, we're giving a lot of praise to the losing team. That means they must have been doing something right. But H2K is the team that are looking to close out the series against the Mysterious Monkeys in Game 2. And that is right around the corner. Stay with us.
Put my inbel with Grace, I had smite, and then Trash was like, oh, I didn't expect him, I didn't expect him. I was like, ha ha ha.
This is about as easy as it can get. He's stunned up on the cocoon. Justice punches his way in for the first blood onto Oda. Jisoo goes down, but hashtag worse. Q is getting chunked out by Jankos, but Yuki comes in to pick up Fevivin, and Cosq lives again. The man is a magician.
Solo. Fuck my life, man. I lost vision.
Into the Ruined King, plus the Elise Jisoo, he can get vision, but it's not going to be too much more than that. The Baron has already gone.
What? Okay.
Flashes back right into the redemption to stay alive as even Che picks up a kill. H2K say no monkey business, not in game 1, as they take a 1-0 lead on the series.